guess that some of us here this morning can't even remember how many times we've heard the words of the Apostle Paul in a wedding service. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not rude. And yet, while Paul really didn't write those words specifically to husbands and wives, but to us, to all of us Christians living together, certainly his words apply to husbands and wives. They, like us, are to love each other deeply, sincerely. They, like us, are to give themselves in service to one another constantly. But how? How do you really do that? And not simply something similar to what Paul is talking about here, not something close, but how do you really do this? How do you live with this kind of love for one another? You see, the words are so lovely, aren't they? They're so beautiful. It's actually a hymn about love, and it's so easy to listen to, it's so easy to agree with, and so easy to have good intentions, but so difficult to actually do. In fact, it is impossible unless you first stop loving self. You can do one or you can do the other, but you cannot do both. And that's what the Lord is telling us this morning. You've got a choice, if you will, between loving self or loving others. But it is impossible. It is impossible to do both. Listen to Jesus. He's just a few weeks away here from his cross, and he has just announced again his cross to his disciples. And maybe you remember they had a lot of difficulty with his words. And maybe you remember that it was Peter in particular who had a lot of trouble with those words. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. And yet, this was the only reason. This was the only reason for which Christ had come into this world. You see, like so many people today, Peter was overlooking and perhaps ignoring the reality of sin. Why can't God just love us all today? And why can't God just take us all to heaven someday? Because of sin. It damns, and it damns eternally. The wages of the sin in my life and in yours and in everybody else's is death, not life. And for that very purpose, Jesus came into this world. That was his mission. Not to be a good example for us, not to be a nice story that we read to our kids, but I've come for the cross, Jesus said. I've come to take your sin on myself, to be your substitute, to die the horrifying death you should die, to endure the hell that you got coming to you, so that you will never have to. I'm your hope. I am your only hope. And I am your only salvation. And the cross is the only way. And that's why you and I, that's why Christians, we always focus on the cross of Christ. The cross is our eternal glory. And so we glory in his cross because it means full and free forgiveness. And there is no other way. And it means sin is gone, and guilt is gone, and death and hell are gone. And it's the certainty that we're at peace. We're at peace with the Almighty God, a peace that the world can't possibly give us, and that we can never gain on our own. And above all, Jesus' cross and his empty tomb then are the assurance that heaven is ours, and life and bliss and victory that have no end through the cross alone. And now it was in this context that Jesus continued. Just as my life is all of the cross, so are the lives of those who belong to me. If anyone would come after me, himself and take up his cross and follow me. You see, a sermon from the pulpit, or some book from the Christian bookstore that tries to paint Christianity as something painless, effortless, easy, entertaining, just a Sunday morning jog to a happy place where all the happy people meet, is counterfeit Christianity. Being a Christian, by its very nature, means a cross. When you become one of mine, Jesus says, you immediately got a cross, and it's absolutely necessary. No cross, no Christian. And it's heavy, he says. And it's hard, and it's painful, because here it is. This, in essence, is your cross. Listen. You deny yourself. And no, it's not so easy like as you deny yourself this or that. You give up ice cream, you give up chocolate, dairy, and lamb. No, being a Christian means you deny self. You turn your back on self, on who you are by nature, on who you were without Jesus Christ. You stop your love very self with that nature that is by nature self-loving and self-serving and self-absorbed and self-focused and self-centered and selfish, that always demands its rights, that always says, I'm going to get what I want. That nature inside that will never do anything nice, that will never do anything good for anybody else unless there's some sort of gain for self. If you come after me, Jesus says, you must deny self. Taking up that heavy and difficult and hard and painful cross. And it is painful. It is painful to turn my back on what I want, on my will, to turn my back on selfishness. And sin is painful and it's hard. But that is the life of a Christian. And now, what does all of this have to do with love? And loving my spouse, and loving my kids, and loving you, and loving my God, as St. Paul describes. Well, it's really quite simple. I cannot love you, for instance, unless I first stop loving self. I cannot love you unless I first deny self. And let me repeat it. That's hard. That is hard. I know it from personal experience, and so do you. It's hard and it's painful, and I feel lost. And that's why Jesus again calls it a cross, a painful, a flesh-ripping cross, one that I'd rather not bear because I love me. I love self. And there are certain and sinful attitudes of self and words and thoughts of self that are near and dear to me. And there are certain sinful actions that I love. And sometimes I look forward to. Sometimes I may even plot. You see, these are the things that self loves. These are the things that self wants. This is the will of self. But unless I deny and stop catering to and stop loving self, I cannot love you then, as the Lord wants me to. I cannot follow His will. Either I love self